about the baby in a moment because I know you're keen to get to that. But let's start with Edward Snowden, the American fugitive whistleblower, call him what you will, still stuck in Moscow airport, not going anywhere for the time being.
No, he's just going to have to bed down and read Dostoevsky because he's been given a copy of Crime and Punishment.
That should keep him going for a while.
And that's what a lot of people have been saying on Twitter. They've been like, oh, well, that's not a good sign because it takes a while to get through that particular book. But the lawyer was doing it for all sorts of symbolic reasons.
Russian dissident and all
That's
the rest
right,
of it.
and it speaks about, Crime and Punishment, as the name of the book would suggest. So, that's another theme. I'll get to that in a sec. Russians greet Snowden with Dostoevsky, so they are obviously already torturing him for information, says somebody being very tongue-in-cheek. This is a quote, actually, from Dostoevsky, which might even be relevant to the whole thing, seeing as he was leaking intelligence information. It takes something more than intelligence to act intelligently. Although I think that's suggesting that he overstepped the line. So I suppose there's an element of
you could read many things into
editorializing.
that tweet, couldn't you?
That's right. And then, of course, one of the main characters is Raskolnikov, who was sent to exile to Siberia. He thought he could commit murder and that it wouldn't be against the law, but it turned out to be against the law. And so, all of these sort of, what would you say, trials and tribulations with the justice system. And I think the Russian lawyer said, he'll have a lot to learn from this particular character's situation.
If he's staying there for a while, there's a lot of Russian classics he could get his teeth into. He has got a clean pair of pants, though,
that's right.
which is
who knew that he was wearing the same clothes for a month? I think that's the most disturbing detail. Change of clothes for him, and I think some people being a bit unfair and saying that he must have been really stinking up the transit lounge.
Well, that's not very nice, is it? Well, I'm sure there's a bathroom
But
there.
I suppose it is a reminder, he's not in very comfortable conditions. He's not being kept in a hotel room, etc. He is in a transit lounge.
He doesn't even have a bed.
This time, yeah.
Can you imagine sleeping on an airport
Everything
chair?
is diplomatic, I suppose. If they give him a bed, are they taking sides? There's all those things to take into account.
He'll be begging to go to Guantanamo any day soon. No, I'm kidding. All right, now let's move on to the baby boy.
Yes.
Finally has a name. Are you excited, James? Are you pleased that he was called George?
I'm neutral. It's just no,
Did you put a bet
not up
on?
or down.
Apparently, it's the most betted on thing in years.
I didn't see what the stakes were actually. I mean,
5-1 for George.
Oh, right.
It was the top bookie's favourite.
But there you go. I wondered, did they get
It's a bit
Alexander Louis as
unoriginal
well?
though. And Kate Middleton's father is called Michael. Why didn't they go for George Michael?
That would have been good.
That would have
Well,
been
you know
nice.
what? There's another one coming up. What about Boy George? And that was
Yes.
that Elizabeth Windsor satirical account.
Oh, she's funny, the Queen, isn't she?
Suggested that, but that was the Pope's suggestion apparently. Now there was one article in the Canadian press that wasn't too impressed at all with this choice of George as a name. Aren't they supposed to be a modern example of royalty? Who names their kid George these days anyway? And I suppose
royals.
Well, that's it. So he might have been getting into the car and driving away, William, yesterday and carrying the baby out and being all modern, but I suppose when it comes down to it, it is still a very traditional family and they're going to go for traditional
James
names.
is a nice name. They should have gone for James.
I'm really glad they didn't actually.
The Scots would be pleased.
Take a look at this. Somebody
Yes.
was saying on Twitter that it might, that this would have been a more original choice. That is actually a real identity card.
Batman bin Superman.
Yes, Singapore
Nice.
resident. So somebody's saying that they could have come up with something a bit more
They could
original.
have made it a little bit more original. We've already had 6 King Georges. Anyway, it's Detroit's birthday. But
That's
it's not a
right.
very happy birthday for them, is it?
it
Because they've
definitely-
been declared bankrupt.
That's right, and it's been in the news a lot in the last few days, and even there's even a challenge now to the declaration of bankruptcy over the whole issue of pensions, city pensions. Take a look at this: 15 houses in Detroit you can buy for less than $500. This is quite depressing when you're paying ginormous rents in somewhere like Paris, and also quite depressing, I suppose, if you're from Detroit. It shows the decline of the city over the last number of decades. $70 for that place on Fleming Street, $100 for that house. Isn't it extraordinary?
It really is. It's a big
But
shame.
the population, I think, in 50 years dropped from 1.8 million to I think 700,000, because a lot of it due to the auto industry being relocated, etc. So
There's a good piece in the Times, I don't know if you saw it, about comparing Detroit and New York and how the two cities manage their finances very differently, and how New York is a much more successcil city, obviously, than
right.
Detroit is
well,
today.
a lot of it was just, I'm sure, really bad management. That's a photo also on social media showing an abandoned school, science lab,
big shame.
and the whole hook there was that it's 312th birthday, founded by a French explorer, Antoine de la Motte Cadillac. from which came the whole Cadillac thing. And we're not going to blame the French for this, obviously, the current woes. Happy birthday, Detroit, Detroit pride, etc. So some people on social media, this is Wayne University, Wayne State University being positive and saying, hey, Detroit, it's going to be okay.
Well, let's hope there are happier times ahead for Detroit. Yes. Okay, James, thank you very much indeed. James CREEDON there with Media Watch. Time now to turn our attentions to business news. Here's Katerina Vitozzi with the day's top stories.